What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolved video. Alrighty, we are back with another Dragonncraft reveals for set 5. Let's go ahead and get into it. Let's see what this first card is. Alright, so the first card we're going to be looking at is Airship Whale. It's a 5-cost 5/5. You can evolve it for 1. So let's go ahead and see what this evolve looks like. Alright, so we have Airship Whale Evolve. So it's a 6/6. So on Evolve, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may put a follower with an original cost of 3 or lower into the field from among them, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Instantly, the first card I think about when I look at this card and see its ability is PDK. And I feel like PDK is going to have a lot of fun things going on with this card as well, even though it is a 5-cost and it doesn't get really huge things off of PDK. But if you play this and then you evolve it, you can go ahead and get into that PDK turn and then go ahead and deal some damage and then do so many things with that 3-cost or lower follower you play from this card. Alright, moving on, we have MFS Giant, and for 9, he's a 7/7, and he has a strike ability to restand this card. You can only use this ability once per turn, and then when it comes into play, you discard a card, and this card gains Rush and Aura. So I don't know if any of you guys watched the Glory Finder videos that I was making, but this card is in the Glory Finder bundle as a 1-up. But it's pretty cool because you're able to discard a card, and if you're running Discard Dragons, you can discard either a Trail of Light or either a Phoenix Fist, I think that was what it's called, or Dragon New Fist, or a Phoenix, and you can get some really good playabilities off of this, and just to have that Rush and Aura to swing into something and then potentially remove it, and then with that strike ability you can restand it. Alright, next up we have Apostle of Disdain. So she's a 3-cost 2/4. You can evolve her for 1, and during your turn, when this follower takes damage from card effects, this card gets +1, +0, and Storm. Alright, so it looks like in this set there's going to be some way for your followers to take damage and for her to survive and get Storm and be able to swing in the same turn. So let's go ahead and see what her evolve is. Alright, so we have the Apostle evolved. So during your turn, when this follower takes damage, she still gets that effect of getting the +1, +0 on Storm. But on Evolve, you discard a card from your hand, you look at the top 5 cards of your deck, and then you reveal up to 2 Omen cards from among them, and you may add them to your hand and put the rest of the cards to the bottom of your deck in any order. So it looks like on the Evo, she doesn't do any damage to herself, but her stat lines does get buffed, but you're able to look for 2 Omen cards just from evolving her. So let's see if there are other cards to where we can get this Apostle of Disdain to have Storm. Okay, and we have Colossal Construct. He's a 7-cost 6/7. He has Ward, and when he comes into play, you return 5 cards from your graveyard to your deck, shuffle it, and then you choose a follower from the enemy field and deal 5 damage to it. Alright, so the first thing I think about when I look at this card is Glory Finder, because you're only going to have 1 copy of each card that you're going to be able to use in your deck, and if you run any sort of Necro Charge and any milling, then when you see a card into your cemetery, you're going to feel pretty bad because it's going to sit there, unless you have Death's Breath. And if you don't have Death's Breath, then you're going to be trying to figure out some other way to get your card back out. But with this card effect, you're going to be able to shuffle those cards back into your deck and get some more value, get a good shuffle in, deal damage, and it has Ward. So it does a lot of things for Glory Finder, but in typical Shadowverse Evolve play, I'm not sure how practical this card might be, even though it's just a good high-cost card. You might want to shuffle some more cards back into your deck that you might only have like maybe 1 or 2 of, and then just having some more recursion in that. But outside of that, I think this card is going to be really goated in Glory Finder. Alright, moving on, we have Cursed Stone. He's a 2-cost 2/2. That's not that bad. You can evolve him for 1, and he has Ward. So let's go ahead and see what that evolve does. Alright, and we have the Cursed Stone evolve. So he has Ward, and on Evolve, you choose a follower from the enemy field, and during this turn and your opponent's next turn, it loses all effects and it can't attack an enemy. So it's wording like this that really does provide, like with Glory Finder, so they have like a really good card on the field, or just in regular Shadowverse Evolve play if you're really scared of cards like that. It doesn't get past Aura, unfortunately, but you're able to choose a follower that might be, you know, just gaining some value by just sitting on the field unengaged, and you can make sure it doesn't attack you, and it loses all effects for this turn and the next turn. Looking at Disciple of Disdain, he's a 1-cost 1/2, so finally Dragonncraft has a 1-cost play. You can activate for 0 play points to choose a follower from your field, deal 1 damage to it, and you can only use this ability once per turn. Okay, so we finally have a card ability that's able to proc Apostle of Disdain to give her that +1 attack and Storm in the same turn. If you already have Disciple of Disdain now, you can go ahead and activate for that 0 play points to go ahead and deal 1 damage to her. Yeah, she's going to be at 3, but she's going to be able to swing that very same turn she's played. So if you have those two cards out, this is the combo that you're going to be looking forward to. And we have Disdainful Rending, so it's a 1-cost spell. You choose a follower from your field and a follower from the enemy field. You deal 1 damage to the former and deal 3 damage to the latter. So another card effect that's able to proc Apostle of Disdain, where you deal 1 damage to her, she's able to get that Storm and that plus effect. And you can also deal some damage to a follower on their field as well that's in those early turns. So that's pretty good. Alright, and we have our first legendary, so we have Gelmiex. I apologize if I did not say that correctly, but we have Omen of Disdain. She's a 5-cost 5/5, you can evolve her for 2, and during your turn, when this follower takes damage from card effects this turn, this evolve becomes 0. So it looks like with the other cards, that being the Disdain Soldier and the spell card that we just looked at, if you're able to deal damage to this card, you can make her evolve free. So let's go ahead and see what her evolve does. Alright, so we have Omen of Disdain evolved, and during your turn, when this follower takes damage from card effects, choose a follower from the enemy field or enemy leader and deal 3 damage to it. And then on evolve, you choose an Omen card with a rental cost of 2 or below from your graveyard, change it to 0, and play it. So it looks like the Omen cards are going to be like the Disdain line, what it's looking to be. So essentially, you play this card out for free with the evolve by dealing damage to her. And by dealing that damage, you could potentially play another card from your cemetery that's going to make it free, that being 2 or less. You deal damage to her, and if you use like Disdainful Rendering or something like that, you can deal 3 damage to a follower, deal 1 damage to her, and then her proc goes off, and then you're able to deal 3 damage to another follower, so 6 in total, or you can deal 3 damage to a leader, which is pretty cool. Okay, and we have God Bullet Golem, so he's a 6-cost 7/7, and this card is unable to attack enemy leaders. You can also activate to engage this card and put another follower on the field to the graveyard, and then you choose an enemy leader or a follower on the enemy field, and deal damage equal to the attack of the follower put into the graveyard. So I can see a lot of control elements where you swing with something and then, you know, there's probably another follower on the field who don't really want to get rid of. If you play God Bullet Golem, you're able to go ahead and engage this card, put that card into the cemetery, and then follow up with that follower's attack into spell damage, which is pretty cool. Alright, moving on, we have Servant of Disdain. He's a 2-cost 2/3, and during your turn, when this follower takes damage from card effects, you draw a card. And then when he comes into play, if Overflow is active for you, you choose another follower from the field, deal 1 damage to that follower and this follower. Okay, so this looks like the card you're going to be optimally playing with our Omen legendary card. There might be some other good targets that you choose from in your graveyard that you use with Omen, but I feel like this might be really good because you're able to plus a card. So you use Omen, and then you're able to evolve and then play that card from your cemetery for free. You play Servant. If you're in Overflow, you deal 1 damage to Servant and Omen. Omen's gonna go off and deal 3 damage to something, either a leader or a follower. And then Servant's gonna go off by pinging himself and you draw a card. So I feel like that combo is gonna be probably the go-to with this deck line. And we have Silver Automaton, so it's a 4-cost 4/5. It has Ward, and then it has Last Word, so when it dies, you put 2 puppets to your EX area. So nothing too crazy on the stat lines of this besides it being a 4/5 and then it dying and getting 2 puppets. So let's see what these 2 puppets do exactly. Alright, so looking at the puppet token, so it's a 1-cost 1/1 with Rush, so I don't see anything being too crazy. Playing that card, the Silver Automaton, and then getting 2 puppets in your EX area. There might be a card in the future for future card design for maybe having as many puppets you have in your EX area or in play or something like that, but so far there's not really good support for puppets like that, but they are introduced. So this is what a puppet token looks like, and it has Rush, and it's a 1/1, so let's go ahead and move on. Alright, and we have Total Domination, so it's a 2-cost spell. You choose a follower from your field, you deal 2 damage to it, deal 2 damage to all followers in the enemy field, and if you have the Prime Legendary that we saw on your field, you deal another 2 damage to all followers in the enemy field. Alright, so we have John d'Arc and a card if you have your legendary on the field. So essentially, you're going to have your legendary on the field, you're going to either use this from your cemetery for free, or you're going to play it from your hand, whichever the situation calls for. But it also has a situation of, is your opponent flooding the board with a whole bunch of followers, or do you need to draw a card against control? So it's one of those hand-in-hand things. But you're going to deal 2 damage to your legendary, you're going to deal 4 to the field, and then if you didn't finish off maybe 1 or 2 followers, or probably just 1 if they don't survive before, but you can go ahead and do another 3 damage to them, or you can deal 3 damage to their face, so I like the flexibility of that. Alright, and lastly, we have the alt art Gelmiex. I think that's how you say it. But she's absolutely beautiful, so if you pull this alt art, this is what it's going to look like. So look out for that in your boxes in the future for set 5. Alright guys, and that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. You don't know how much it means to me that you're here watching my content. Alright, make sure you're safe in whatever you do tonight and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.